Matt, really nice to see you. You're from the Wildlife Trust, from Avon Wildlife. You've got some brilliant things inside of your marquee, and I think you should take us on a mini tour and show us what's just inside the door.
Yeah, we'd love to. So yes, we're focusing on 30 Days Wild, this big campaign about trying to get people to interact with nature every single day. And as part of that today, we're trying to focus on getting people involved and doing small things. So we've got our kind of urban garden in front of us, and we've been encouraging kids and families to come along and build some artistic, like bats we've got here, clay bats, making some recycled material insects and all kinds of things to go in our urban garden. And the whole idea is to try and get people to appreciate how by just doing small things in your garden, planting wildflowers, you can attract all this amazing wildlife. So here's just a few examples of those things.
I love what you've got. This looks like the shell of some nuts that are, what is that, a hedgehog?
Yeah, I think it's meant to represent a hedgehog. There's a bit of pistachio shells being used there, cherry stones, so the kids can eat the cherries and then recycle the stones that they get out of it. Obviously, this is clay, so we're trying to avoid using anything that isn't biodegradable, staying away from plastic as we all should, and keeping it all to natural materials.
So in terms of making gardens wildlife friendly then, just some of the basic pointers.
Yeah, absolutely. So some things can be really simple. It can just be a case of choosing the right pollinator plants. And today we've got a massive banner, new banner in our tent that gives you the full plethora of all the different plants you can put in. Also having a small area where you just don't do much management, leaving it to go wild is a really good method. And staying away from pesticides and herbicides and stuff like that. Just keep all those chemicals away from your garden. Simple things like that can really make a hell of a difference for a garden.
I think especially at spring, you kind of get this urge to get out there and do something, start chopping stuff down, tidying it up, stacking things up, you know, having a bit of a clearance. But actually, what might have happened there is you may have inadvertently created a fantastic bug hotel or something might be nestled underneath it. You know, hedgehogs, we talked about this. And time of year, lots of people get busy with the strimmer. The grass has just grown so long, quick, let's start strimming it. But watch out.
Yeah, absolutely. And then this time of year, we already know from Avon, who's in the lovely hedgehog rescue inside the BBC tent, you know, hedgehogs are just starting to have their first young. So now's a really careful time in the garden where we've got birds with young around, lots of birds' nests, lots of hedgehogs, lots of things that we just need to be a bit more cautious about. So doing lots of new planting, great, fantastic. Get all that pollen in your garden. But in terms of doing any maintenance, just save it for a couple more months. And then when it comes into September, we can start tidying up a little bit more.
I hadn't quite appreciated how dangerous strimmers can be for hedgehogs. And the one that you brought in to show me in the radio studio only had 3 legs.
Yeah, beautiful bracken that we brought in. So our lovely demonstration hedgehog got a bit of a grisly past. Unfortunately, he was from a wild garden, was hit by a strimmer. The damage to his leg was too much. And because he's only got 3 legs, it probably wasn't worth releasing him back into the wild because he probably wouldn't survive. So now he's looked after in a lovely wild garden in Avon's and lives a very, very natural lifestyle.
He was an extremely good interviewee, I have to say. I know that you have focused a fair bit actually on trying to make gardens friendly for hedgehogs because we've seen a big decline in their numbers and lots of discussions about why that might be. And I know you've been part of the team making wildlife corridors and hedgehog corridors. People can do small things, tiny holes in the hedges in their garden.
Yeah, it doesn't take an awful lot to connect your garden to one another. So we often put up these big fences, we build walls, and we sort of want to divide up our city to claim our space. For wildlife, that can be a disaster, in particular like the terrestrial stuff that can't really climb over walls. Badgers, foxes, birds can fly over them. Insects generally do quite well. But for hedgehogs and toads and newts, they get completely trapped in or are completely isolated from being able to get in and access all that great habitat. So a small hole, postcard size, is perfect. It means anything of that size can get through.
This isn't related, but I saw your sign just outside, and you've got one of those big sort of triangle hazard warning signs, except yours is green. And I saw one that was a bit like that, just thinking about wildlife and the corridors and the routes that they take and how they often have established routes. I went on my very first toad and frog patrol. It's so much fun. Who'd have thought this? It's quite a fascinating thing, actually. So I just went to go and meet. It turned out it was a bunch of other women, and we were meeting on a housing estate. We were in Portishead. I know there are toad patrols all over the place. And we met one evening. It was dark. It was rainy. And oh my goodness, we must have picked up like getting on towards 100 of them, all making their way towards the ponds. You know, it was earlier on this year. It was when it became dark fairly early on, and people would happen to be driving home, and so there's a danger that they get squashed and they're off to go and breed.
Yeah, absolutely. So toads and newts and all of those migrate from woodland sites where they've hibernated in damp woodland, and then they want to move down into their breeding ponds. And often, those used to had no barriers to them whatsoever. Now we've built roads going through them. They have to cross over those still. They've still got that instinct to go from A to B. And so what there's been now set up is that we've realized how much damage cars can do. So in those kind of like late February into March times, there's the toad patrols, those heroes who go out there, volunteer on those wet nights. Usually a full moon's a good indication it's going to be a good night, and just watch out and help them on their way, or just stop cars and allow the toads to pass. But yeah, on a good night, can be hundreds and hundreds, your bucket loads in hand, saving all these lives. And, don't underestimate how important that action is and all that volunteering is. It's just inspiring for everyone.
Apart from saving them, which is a nice thing, what difference does it make then?
Well, because it's all part of this greater ecosystem, we don't know what animals play, what certain roles. We've got a good understanding of some, but every single species has its role that it plays. In gardens, if you want a human purpose, if a lot of us want, toads and frogs eat lots and lots of slugs and snails, so they keep them off your lovely plants that you're trying to grow. If you don't have them there's nothing to control them. Maybe a hedgehog might help as well. They do the same thing. So there's all these different layers that we don't always fully understand and appreciate. So more diversity, the better, the healthier the ecosystem.
Absolutely. Now, when Matt came in to see me on the radio with one of his colleagues, he didn't come empty-handed. That's often the case with my guests. They like to bring stuff in. Often things to eat, actually, which is usually all right. But one of the things, apart from the hedgehog that you came in with, you also came in with some slow worms, which I've got to be honest, I'd never seen them before, and I'd never held them either. And that was quite an experience, because you tend to think they're a little bit like mini snakes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, isn't it crazy? I wouldn't consider you someone who is disconnected from nature. You're very connected, and sort of never have held a slow worm. It used to be something that a lot of the kind of other generations have said, oh yeah, slow worms all over my garden. We don't really have that so much now, and it's such an amazing experience to sort of interact with slow worms and stuff like that. Yes, a lot of people think that they're a snake. They're not. They're a legless lizard. Look for the blinking eye. Okay, snakes don't have eyelids. That was the tip I gave you. So if you can see it blinking and giving you a wink, then you know it's a lizard. Okay, but they're just fantastic, and they're a pretty robust animal. So in terms of introducing kids to nature, having something like a compost heap, which they love, then you can get them to forage through and find this nature.
And the tip for holding them, should you come across one, they're about that long, and it's to hold it like a pencil, so sort of fairly firmly. Do it confidently, not squeezing it obviously, but just hold it fairly firmly like a pencil, kind of like that.
Yeah, and avoid holding the end of the tail. So they've got this amazing reflex that if they get attacked by a predator, they'll drop that tail in order to make it a distraction. So it breaks at the vertebrae, it'll spin around, and then the bigger bit of the slow worm will go off. So they'll do the same to you. So just make sure you hold them in the middle of the body towards the head. And again, nice confident grip gives them the confidence that they'll be absolutely fine.
The reason that you brought all of these things in, I should say, and you mentioned it right at the start when we came in your marquee today, is that this is part of the 30 Days Wild Challenge, and it's what the Wildlife Trust are challenging you watching this right now, to do, and that is to engage in nature for 30 days. Wildlife, do something wildlife nature related, can be absolutely anything, and then share it using the hashtag 30 Days Wild.
Yeah, it's absolutely, it's a nationwide campaign, and the idea is that if people do something every single day, just small, to make their day a little bit more wild, it's what we call our random acts of wildness, it'll become something that just becomes a part of their everyday life. And a lot of us, probably a lot of people here, already have some connection with nature. And it's just being consciously aware of doing that. You don't have to do lots of big things. It's not about having to go for a giant sweep netting exercise, catching butterflies, but maybe follow a bee. Maybe just think about what garden plants you have in your garden. Could I plant one more new one? It's just having it consciously in your mind. And if you need any ideas, they can be as out there as you want, lots of crazy ones. Then go onto the Wildlife Trust website, have a look at it, 30 Days Wild. Anything you do, just put a hashtag, stick it on social media, and inspire someone else to do something amazing, because that's what we're here for. All the organizations here all love nature, we all love nature, and we just want everyone else to enjoy it too.
Thank you so much. And just in terms of your marquee, which I know you can see in the background, lots of people in here. Look, this is so cute.
Yeah, it's great. The kids have been coming all day, so we've got them doing this brilliant art exhibition too. We've got an amazing nature library. I should give a big shout out to Bristol Museum, who've kindly donated some of their amazing specimens. So they're in our display too. There's nature books to look at, a nature table to explore. Nature, 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 absolutely everything you could possibly want.
And Matt is a very enthusiastic member of the team. I think you get that sort of sense, absolutely passionate about it, and I know would very happily answer any of the questions that you might have. Wildlife in your garden, things you think you might have seen, can tell you about the value of joining the Avon Wildlife Trust as well. So thank you, Matt. I'm going to let you carry on with your good works in spreading the word.